You keep trying to win arguments with logic when the real battle was never about reason. It was about making opposition feel socially suicidal. Every single time you line up your facts, build your case, present your evidence like a lawyer in a courtroom, you are playing a game that was rigged against you before you ever opened your mouth. Because the person who wins is never the one with the best argument. The person who wins is the one who makes disagreeing feel like standing alone in a room full of people who have already decided you are wrong. Being right is a consolation prize. Being unopposable is power. This is the ruthless art Machiavelli understood better than anyone who ever lived. Not the art of being correct. The art of being unchallengeable. He knew that power is not about what you say. It is about what you make other people feel when they try to say something back. And what you want them to feel is alone. Outnumbered. Outmatched. Like the cost of opening their mouth is simply higher than the cost of staying silent. Most people think persuasion is about logic. Strategic people know persuasion is about social gravity. It is about creating a pull so strong that resistance does not just feel wrong. It feels insane. Here are 7 dark principles that will make disagreeing with you feel like an act of self-destruction. 1. Stop arguing logic. The frame is the real battlefield. Every time you enter a disagreement thinking the person with the better facts wins, you have already lost. You have already lost because you are fighting on a battlefield that does not exist. People do not make decisions based on logic. They make decisions based on feelings, based on identity, based on where they perceive the social wind is blowing, and then they construct a logical argument afterward to justify what they already decided. You do this. Everyone does this. The difference is that most people do not know they do it, and you are about to. The real battle in any disagreement is never about the topic. It is about the frame. The frame is the invisible set of assumptions that surrounds the conversation and determines what feels reasonable and what feels ridiculous inside of it. Whoever controls the frame controls what counts as a valid argument and what counts as noise. You can have every fact on your side and still lose completely if the other person controls the frame, because inside their frame, your facts do not even register as relevant. They get dismissed. Not because they are wrong, but because they do not fit. Think about what this has cost you. Think about the arguments you lost where you were objectively, undeniably right. You walked away confused, maybe even angry, because you had the facts and they had nothing, and they still won. They won because they were never arguing about facts. They were arguing about identity, about belonging, about who looks smart and who looks foolish. And you showed up with a spreadsheet. The shift you need to make is this. Stop trying to prove you are right. Start trying to make it socially impossible for anyone to look good while disagreeing with you. That is the frame. That is the game. When you walk into a room, your job is not to lay out your reasoning. Your job is to set the emotional and social conditions so that by the time you state your position, agreeing with you feels like the obvious, safe, intelligent thing to do, and disagreeing feels like picking a fight with reality itself. This is not dishonesty. This is precision. You are simply recognizing that human beings are social animals first and rational creatures second, and you are stop playing the game as if the reverse were true. Most people bring facts to a frame fight. Strategic people bring the frame and let the facts take care of themselves. 2. Manufacture consensus before you ever make your case. There is a principle that runs deeper than most people will ever understand. When human beings are uncertain about what to think, they look at what other people think. Not because others are smarter. Because the brain is lazy and social proof is a shortcut. If everyone else seems to believe something, the brain takes a shortcut and assumes there must be a reason. It is a survival mechanism. Going against the group used to mean death. Your brain still thinks it does. This means that the single most powerful thing you can do before you make any argument is to create the appearance that the argument has already been won. You do not present your case and hope people agree. You make it look like agreement already exists, and then you simply name what everyone has supposedly already concluded. This is not lying. This is staging. You are setting the atmosphere before the performance begins. How do you do this? You reference conversations that have already happened. You mention that the question has basically been settled. You use language that assumes your position is the default, not the proposition. You do not say I think this approach is better. You say the question is really whether we are going to do this properly or keep improvising. You do not say I believe we should go in this direction. You say once it became clear what the right direction was, the only question was timing. You have not made your argument yet. You have already framed disagreement as a deviation from what the group has already accepted. The cost of not doing this is enormous. Every time you present your idea as a proposal, as an opinion, as something you are putting forward for consideration, you are handing people permission to disagree. You are signaling that this is up for debate. And the moment something is up for debate, the social proof mechanism flips against you, because now the room is uncertain, and uncertainty makes people look around, and when they look around they see other people who are also uncertain, and suddenly your idea feels like a gamble instead of a conclusion. Manufacture consensus early. Plant it inside conversations. Drop hints. Let people arrive at what looks like their own conclusion. Then when the real moment comes, you are not proposing. You are confirming. And confirming feels safe. Proposing feels risky. Most people propose and hope. Strategic people confirm what was already decided. 3. Project authority without stating a single credential. Authority triggers deference. This is not a theory. This is a mechanism wired into the human nervous system. When the brain detects certain cues that signal authority, it switches off its critical thinking and switches on automatic compliance. Not because people are stupid. Because the brain is designed to conserve energy, and questioning authority costs energy. Obeying it saves energy. The brain takes the shortcut every time. The most dangerous part of this is that the brain does not check credentials. It does not verify your resume. It does not ask for your qualifications. It reads cues. Specific, physical, behavioral cues that signal this person is in charge. And once those cues register, deference kicks in automatically, without a single conscious thought. What are these cues? Stillness. People who fidget, who shift their weight, who fill silence with nervous chatter, signal low status. People who are still signal control. Control signals authority. Volume is not authority. Stillness is. Slower speech. When you speak quickly, you signal that you are afraid of being interrupted, that you do not believe your words are worth waiting for. When you slow down, you signal that the room will wait for you. And it will. Eye contact that holds a beat longer than comfortable. Not aggressive. Not staring. Just a fraction longer than what most people do, and then you break it first on your own terms. That fraction of a second communicates that you are not afraid of the other person, and the brain reads lack of fear as evidence of power. Physical space. People who take up space, who do not shrink into their chairs, who do not cross their arms protectively, who keep their hands visible and their posture open, these people are read as authoritative before they say a word. And people who make their bodies smaller are read as submissive before they say a word. The brain does not ask for permission to make these judgments. It just makes them. Calm. This is the one that matters most. When everyone else is agitated and you are calm, the brain does not just read you as authoritative. It reads you as correct. Because the unconscious logic is simple. If this person is calm while everyone else is panicking, they must know something the rest of us do not. Calm in the face of chaos is the single most powerful authority cue in the human repertoire. Marcus Aurelius understood this. The emperor who wrote his meditations in war tents, surrounded by death, surrounded by betrayal, and his power was not his army. His power was his composure. Calm is contagious. And so is panic. You choose which one you spread. What has it cost you to not know this? Every time you entered a room nervous, every time you spoke too fast, every time you looked away first, every time you shrank your body to take up less space, you were telling every person in that room that you were not the authority. And they obeyed. They obeyed your signal and treated you accordingly. You were projecting submission and wondering why no one deferred to you. Most people ask for authority and never receive it. Strategic people embody authority and never have to ask. 4. Turn the herd into your weapon. Groups do not produce independent thinking. This is one of the most uncomfortable truths about human nature, and it is one that has probably cost you more than you realize. Groups produce conformity. They pull individuals toward the center, toward consensus, toward whatever the dominant voice in the room is saying. Not because people are weak, but because the group is a gravity well. The deeper you are inside it, the stronger the pull, and the harder it is to maintain a position that differs from the group. This means two things. First, it means that if you are inside a group trying to argue against the group, you will almost always lose. Not because you are wrong, but because the group will unconsciously coordinate against you. They will not even realize they are doing it. They will use eye contact, body language, tone of voice, small dismissive gestures, and they will do all of this automatically, because the group perceives dissent as a threat and it defends itself without anyone giving the order. Second, and this is where it gets dangerous, it means that if you can position yourself as the voice of the group will fight your battles for you. You do not need to defeat your opponent. You need to make your opponent feel like they are arguing against the group. Once that feeling takes hold, the fight is over. The person will cave. Not because your argument improved. Because their brain detected that they were alone, and being alone triggers a primal alarm that is almost impossible to override with logic. How do you do this? You align yourself with the group's existing values, language, and identity before you introduce anything controversial. You do not walk in with your own flag. You walk in carrying the group's flag, and then you reinterpret the situation in a way that makes your position look like the natural extension of what the group already believes. You do not say the group is wrong. You say the group is right, and here is what that actually means. You do not challenge the consensus. You redirect it. And you use physical positioning. You place yourself at the center of the group, not at the edge. You make eye contact with multiple people while you speak, not just the person you are addressing. You reference other people in the room as though they are already on your side, even if they have not spoken. You use the word we instead of I. You say we have always valued clarity, and this is the clearest path forward. You say our standard has always been high, and this meets it. You are not speaking for yourself. You are speaking for the group. And the group will let you, because the group is desperate for someone to tell it what to think. Most people fight the herd and get trampled. Strategic people ride the herd and point it where they want it to go. 5. Validate before you strike. Lower the gates before you take the city. Here is something that almost no one understands about influence. People do not resist new ideas because the ideas are bad. They resist new ideas because accepting them would require admitting that their current position is wrong, and admitting you are wrong feels like dying. Not metaphorically. The brain processes social threat and physical threat in the same regions. Being proven wrong lights up the same circuits as physical danger. This is why people will defend a position that is clearly, obviously, painfully wrong, and they will defend it with everything they have. They are not defending the idea. They are defending their self-image. They are defending their identity. This means that if you attack someone's position directly, you are not attacking their argument. You are attacking their identity. And identity does not surrender. Identity fights to the death over things it would concede in a heartbeat if it did not feel threatened. So you do something counterintuitive. Before you introduce your position, you validate theirs. Not because you agree with it. Because you need to lower the drawbridge before you can enter the city. You make them feel understood. You make them feel respected. You acknowledge the intelligence of their position, the logic behind it, the legitimate concerns that drove them to it. You do this genuinely. You find what is actually reasonable in what they are saying and you name it out loud. And then something remarkable happens. The defensiveness drops. The walls come down. The brain stops registering you as a threat and starts registering you as an ally. And once that switch happens, you are no longer fighting against their identity. You are working with it. You can introduce your position not as a contradiction of theirs but as a refinement, an evolution, the next logical step from where they already are. You do not say you are wrong. You say you are right, and here is what that means we should do next. This is not manipulation in the way most people think of it. This is precision. You are working with human nature instead of against it. You are using the mechanism instead of fighting it. What has it cost you to not know this? Think about every time you told someone they were wrong. Think about how that went. Think about how their face changed, how their body tightened, how they dug in and refused to move even when the evidence was right there. You made them defend a position they might have abandoned on their own if you had simply made it safe to abandon. You created the resistance you could not overcome. You handed them a sword and then wondered why they were fighting back. Most people attack the position and harden it. Strategic people validate the person and dissolve the position. 6. Make disagreement feel like isolation. This is the darkest principle and the one you need to handle with the most care. The most powerful force in human social psychology is not logic, not authority, not even fear. It is the fear of being alone. The fear of standing apart from the group. The fear of being the one person in the room who sees things differently and says so. This fear is so deep, so primal, so overwhelming that most people will betray their own judgment, their own eyes, their own memory, just to avoid it. There is a reason for this. For most of human history, being cast out of the group meant death. Not social discomfort. Death. Exposure, starvation, predation. The human brain evolved in a world where belonging was survival and isolation was execution. That world is gone, but the brain has not updated. The fear is still the same. The alarm bells still ring with the same intensity. Being the lone dissenter does not feel like a disagreement. It feels like a death sentence. You can use this. You do not use it by threatening people. You use it by creating conditions where disagreement naturally feels isolating. You have already learned to manufacture consensus, to project authority, to align with the group. When all of these are working together, the person who disagrees with you is not just disagreeing with a position. They are standing against the entire social atmosphere of the room. They feel it in their body before they can articulate it in their mind. The room is with you. They are not with the room. And that feeling, that primal, ancient, terrifying feeling, will make most people fold before they even finish their sentence. You do not need to be cruel about this. In fact, cruelty backfires. If someone feels attacked, they will fight, because attack triggers a different response than isolation. Attack triggers defiance. Isolation triggers surrender. The difference is subtle but critical. You do not say you are wrong and everyone knows it. You simply create an atmosphere where disagreement feels awkward, where it feels like disrupting something that is already settled, where the dissenter can feel the room pulling away from them with every word they speak. You do this with silence. When they start to disagree, you do not jump in. You let them talk into a quiet room. You let them hear their own voice echo. You let them feel the absence of support. You hold a calm, steady gaze. You do not look angry. You do not look defensive. You look patient. You look like someone who has heard this before and is simply waiting for it to pass. And the room, taking its cues from you, goes quiet too. And in that quiet, the dissenter feels the full weight of being alone. Most people try to shout down opposition. Strategic people let opposition drown in its own silence. 7. Never defend, never explain, just observe. This is the principle that ties everything together. The one that separates the amateur from the master. When someone challenges you, when someone pushes back, when someone questions your position or your authority or your judgment, the single most powerful thing you can do is nothing. Not literally nothing. But the thing that feels like nothing and is actually everything. You do not defend. You do not explain. You do not justify. You do not scramble to prove yourself. You do not hand the other person the reassurance they are looking for. You hold. The instinct to defend is the instinct that gives away your power. Every time you explain yourself to someone who has not earned the explanation, you are telling them that their opinion matters more than your composure. Every time you justify your position to someone who is not arguing in good faith, you are feeding them ammunition. Every time you rush to prove that you are right, you are signaling that you are afraid of being wrong. And the person who is afraid of being wrong has already conceded the frame. Marcus Aurelius wrote about this in his tent on the front lines of war. He did not write for an audience. He wrote for himself. And what he kept coming back to, over and over, was this idea. You do not control what other people do. You control what you do. And what you do, when the world pushes, is hold. You do not react. You do not flinch. You do not let the external world dictate your internal state. The person who can hold their composure when everyone around them is losing theirs is the person who owns the room. Not because they argued better. Because they refuse to be moved. When someone challenges you, here is what you do. You listen. Fully. Without interrupting. Without preparing your rebuttal while they speak. You listen with your whole body, and then you pause. You let the silence sit. You let them feel the weight of what they just said hanging in the air without your validation. And then you respond, not with a defense, but with a question. A calm, precise question that exposes the weakness in their position without you having to name it. You ask them to clarify something they assumed was obvious. You ask them to explain the mechanism behind their assertion. You ask them what they think happens next if their position is adopted. And you watch them unravel their own argument while you sit perfectly still. This is the highest form of power. You do not defeat them. You let them defeat themselves. You create the conditions where their own words become the evidence against them, and you do it from a position of such calm control that they cannot even identify you as the source of their discomfort. They just know that they walked in confident and walked out uncertain, and they cannot quite explain what happened. Most people defend their position and lose it. Strategic people hold their ground and let the other person collapse into it. Now listen carefully, because this is where it all comes together. Every single one of these principles is built on the same foundation. The same truth that Machiavelli understood and that most people will never grasp. Power is not about being right. Power is about making it impossible for anyone to be wrong at you without paying a price. When you stop arguing logic and start controlling frames, when you manufacture consensus before you speak, when you project authority through stillness and calm, when you turn the herd into your instrument, when you validate before you strike, when you make disagreement feel like isolation, and when you refuse to defend or explain, you are not playing the game of persuasion. You are redesigning the game so that the only move available to anyone in the room is to align with you. This is not about being cruel. This is about being precise. This is about understanding that human beings are social creatures who make decisions based on emotional and social signals, and using that understanding to create conditions where your position is not just the best argument but the only position that feels safe to hold. The cost of not knowing this has been every argument you lost while being right. Every meeting where you had the answer and someone else got the credit. Every conversation where you knew the truth and could not get anyone to listen. Every moment where you watched someone less qualified, less prepared, less correct walk away with the win because they understood something you did not. They understood that the battle was never about facts. It was about who made disagreement feel like a mistake. That ends now. Because here is the thing. You already have everything you need. You do not need to be smarter. You do not need better facts. You do not need louder arguments. You need to stop playing the game as if the person with the best logic wins, because that game does not exist. It was never real. The real game is the one where the person who controls the social frame, who projects unshakable authority, who makes the room feel like it has already decided, that person wins. Every time. Regardless of the facts. Being right is a consolation prize. Being unopposable is power. Say it again in your mind. Being right is a consolation prize. Being unopposable is power. Machiavelli did not build his reputation on being correct. He built it on being unchallengeable. On creating a presence so calibrated, so controlled, so precisely tuned to the social mechanics of human nature that resistance to him did not just feel difficult. It felt absurd. That is the power you now hold. Not the power to win arguments. The power to make arguments irrelevant. To create conditions where no one even tries to disagree with you, because trying feels like walking into a storm with an umbrella made of paper. So right now, not tomorrow, not next week, not when you feel ready, start. Start with the next conversation you walk into. Do not bring a better argument. Bring a better frame. Do not try to prove you are right. Make it feel socially insane to suggest you are wrong. Do not defend your position. Hold your silence and let the other person fill it with their own uncertainty. Right now, in this moment, you have a choice. You can keep being the person who is always right and always loses. Or you can become the person who is never challenged because challenging you feels like standing alone against the entire room. The ruthless art Machiavelli perfected, now it is yours. Go to the comments and write these 4 words. I am untouchable. Not because it is a mantra. Not because it is an affirmation. Because it is a declaration. A line in the sand. A decision, made right now, that you are done playing a game you were never meant to win, and you are starting to play the game that was always playing you. I am untouchable. Write it. Mean it. Become it.